Visiting a theme park can be pretty daunting, especially if you want to get on all the major rides. Long queues and ride closures can make it difficult to do everything you want to do in only 8 or so hours. And these things are completely out of your control, unless you drop a stink bomb to empty a queue or come to the rescue and whack a roller coaster with a hammer to get it working again. That being said, there are some tips that can be used to your advantage to get the most out of any day at a theme park, including saving money, getting on as many rides as possible, and enjoying your day to its fullest. So, let's get straight into it. The first tip for visiting theme parks is something to keep in mind before you even decide when you'll be visiting. Of course, theme parks can get very busy. Because of how popular and well-loved theme parks are, there are some days where parks will be absolutely packed, with queues sometimes reaching several hours. However, not every day is like this. First of all, weekends are generally a lot busier than weekdays as children aren't at school. Therefore, if you can, it's always good to see if you can visit the park on a weekday. If this isn't an option, for example if you're one of the kids at school, then there are some other ways to try and beat the crowds. Parks are busier at different seasons. For example, summer is generally the best time of the year, especially during the summer holidays or summer break if you're in the US. However, when the break ends, it's normally a lot quieter. Also, any days where the weather perhaps isn't as good as other days will normally be much quieter if you're willing to brave the cold. But the best way to pick your day of visit is to use a crowd calendar. These websites can give you predictions of the crowd level of certain days, using data such as trends from the previous years, weather, and events. While they can't tell the future, I find these websites are normally reasonably accurate and useful. Next up, you need to buy your tickets. Most parks give a large discount if you book online and in advance, so by doing this you can both save money and avoid having to queue up for tickets on the day. Another way you can save money is by buying an annual pass. This only applies if you're planning to visit a park a good 4 or more times a year, but if you are, these passes can save you money not just on park tickets, but can often give you discounts on various things such as food, fast pass and parking. These can often be bought for chain parks as well, like Six Flags or Merlin Entertainment. But again, don't buy these if you aren't planning on visiting multiple times in a year, otherwise it would be a big waste of money. So now we have our tickets and it's time to visit the theme park, and whatever park it is, there's one tip that pretty much applies to every single one. Get there early. Most theme parks open at around 10 AM, but it's normally best to arrive around 9:30 or maybe even earlier. There are multiple reasons why this is helpful. Having a full day at a theme park from opening time to closing time obviously means you have more time to get on rides, increasing the likelihood that you'll get on everything you want to. Secondly, some parks open their gates early, before any of the rides open. That means if you get there early and get into a queue before the park even opens for the day, then you can theoretically get on a ride almost straight away. Finally, allowing time to be early can account for any traffic on the roads or delays in public transport. As well as arriving early, you can also maximise your time by staying right up until closing, or even beyond. You see, at most parks, the closing time is actually the time the queues for all the rides close, meaning that if you hop in an hour-long queue 1 minute before the park closes, you'll end up on the ride an hour later, which is another tip to get an extra ride at the end of the day. That being said, some parks will close their rides early if the queue gets long, so it's best to do some research to find out about the specific park that you're visiting to not end up disappointed. So now you've got on a ride straight after park opening, and a ride after the park technically closes for the day. What about all the time in the middle? How do you get on every ride that you want to in only 8 or so hours? The first thing you can do to maximise your time is download the app a few weeks before your visit. If you check queue times on the app a few times per day, this can help you gauge the general trends of what rides are busiest at certain times of the day. This can help you make a very rough plan of the order that you'll aim to do the rides in, but make sure it's flexible as every day is different and temporary ride closures can throw a spanner in the works. Generally speaking, rides at the front of the park or brand new rides get busier at the start of the day, so aim to head to the back of the park to start off your day and try to go in a circular route around the park if you want to reduce the amount of walking you do. To do this, you can work out the route you'll take before you get to the park by looking at the park map and roughly learning where each ride is. Also, queues often die down around lunchtime while everyone stops to eat, so either eat your lunch late or have it while in a queue to make the most of this. Speaking of lunch, it's pretty common knowledge that theme park food is expensive. So to save money, bring a packed lunch. But keep in mind that some parks don't let you bring in your own food, which I think is crazy, but make sure to check this before visiting. But back to maximising your time, there is another way to beat queues without having to buy a fast pass. Some rides at some parks feature queues called single rider lines. These are effective to the park since they help to speed up operations by filling seats on coasters with those who are willing to ride alone. The great thing about these is that the single rider line is almost never as long as the normal queue line. So if you're visiting a park alone or don't mind splitting up with your group, these are perfect to skip the queue on the rides that have them. So now you know some tips on how to get on as many rides as possible, let's run through some quick fire tips to keep in mind during your theme park trips. Some parks have free water refills, but some don't. Make sure you check this before you visit, and if the park you're going to doesn't have them, then make sure to bring enough water to last the day. Next, make sure you bring a power pack to charge your phone, just in case it runs out of battery halfway through the day. Lots of parks have charging stations, but these aren't useful when you want to be moving around the park. If you see someone queue jumping, don't just let them. Lots of people try to disguise queue jumping by saying they have someone waiting for them or holding their space, but this is still classified as queue jumping. Some parks have numbers you can text to alert security of queue jumpers, and these numbers can also be used to report antisocial or rude behaviour by other guests, thus keeping parks a nicer place to be. Finally, don't be rude to staff members, put graffiti on buildings or fences, or bring loose articles on rides that don't allow you to, unless you want to be kicked out of the park. Most importantly, make sure you don't take your day too seriously. Use these tips the way you want to, without getting stressed about getting on every single ride. Just have fun and enjoy your day, and that way you can make some lifelong memories. That brings us nicely to the end of this video. If you have any tips of your own, drop them in the comments and like and subscribe for more theme park and roller coaster related content. Take care and goodbye.